Nestled in the coastal town of Torquay, Torre Abbey has long stood as a monument to layered English history, first as a medieval monastery, later as a grand Georgian estate, and now as a heritage site echoing with the whispers of centuries past. Among its many tales, one lingers with particular mystique: the ghost of Lady Cary, said to glide silently through the lane beside the abbey in a glowing carriage, forever enroute to a long-forgotten ball. First reported in the 1870s by two women who described a radiant figure disappearing before their eyes. The legend has endured through the decades, captivating imaginations and drawing visitors eager to glimpse the supernatural. While no specific Lady Cary has been conclusively identified in the historical record, the story finds a firm foundation in the real Cary family, who transformed Torre Abbey from sacred to secular in the 17th century. Prominent landowners and local dignitaries, the Carys were known for their wealth, social status, and connection to the evolving character of Torquay, particularly during the 18th and 19th centuries, when the seaside town began its rise as a fashionable resort for Britain's upper classes. The legend typically anchors Lady Cary in the Georgian era, a period characterized by opulence, powdered wigs, and glittering assemblies. The romantic vision of a glamorous noblewoman dressed for a gala, eternally bound to her carriage, perfectly captures the grandeur associated with the Cary family name, even if it lacks a precise historical counterpart. Some speculate that the ghost may be a folkloric composite, loosely inspired by figures such as Elizabeth Cary, died 1639, or possibly a later matriarch whose name has been lost to time but whose imagined aura lives on. The earliest known account of Lady Cary's ghost originates from the 1870s, a period coinciding with a cultural explosion of interest in spiritualism, ghost stories, and Gothic revivalism. According to the report, two women saw a luminous carriage gliding silently down the lane near the abbey. Inside was a resplendent woman, radiant and spectral, whose light was said to outshine the moon. As the carriage drew near, it vanished, leaving behind only the echo of mystery. This sighting bears all the hallmarks of Victorian ghost lore. The phantom coach is a recurring archetype in English folklore, frequently symbolizing lost nobility, death, or unfinished business. Similar legends, like the Headless coachman of Blickling Hall, or the death coach of Ireland's Banshee Tales, tie spectral carriages to ancestral trauma or unfulfilled fates. In this context, Lady Cary's endless journey through Torre Abbey Lane is not just a haunting. It is a story of status suspended in time, a bygone era unwilling to fade. Skeptics have offered rational explanations for the original sighting. Torquay's coastal environment often produces thick mist and unusual light effects, especially at night. Combined with gas or oil lanterns, moonlight through fog could easily produce illusions of glowing figures or vehicles. In a pre-electric world, such phenomena could be dramatic enough to inspire or reinforce tales of the supernatural. Beyond physical misinterpretations, the ghost may also represent a psychological projection of nostalgia or loss. By the late 19th century, the aristocratic world that the Carys once inhabited was in decline. The Industrial Revolution, urbanization, and shifting social hierarchies had begun to erode the foundations of noble privilege. In this light, Lady Cary's ghost can be read as a symbol of vanishing grandeur, a collective yearning for a more elegant past, embodied in a solitary figure caught between worlds. Today, Lady Cary's tale persists less as a matter of belief and more as a curated part of Torre Abbey's lore. Guided ghost tours, online retellings, and regional histories continue to reference her. though modern sightings are non-existent. A scan of recent sources, including the official Torre Abbey website and social media discussions, shows an emphasis on her story as heritage rather than haunting. This evolution reflects a broader shift in the function of ghost stories. Once told to inspire fear or warn of transgression, such legends now serve to enrich a sense of place, deepen historical atmosphere, and connect modern audiences with the imaginative past. The figure of Lady Cary, resplendent in Georgian finery and lit by unearthly light, is no longer just a ghost. She is a guardian of memory, a character in the long novel of Torquay's transformation. The ghost of Lady Cary may never have existed in flesh, but she has lived long in story. Her tale is stitched from the remnants of history, the shadows of noble decline, and the mists of Devon's coast. Whether the 1870s sighting was a trick of the light or a moment of communal imagination, the legend continues to resonate because it speaks to something deeply human, a fascination with what lingers just beyond understanding. In the end, Lady Cary's ghost is not merely a supernatural anomaly. It is a beautifully crafted echo of history, myth, and longing, rolling endlessly through time in her glowing, vanishing carriage. Our next paranormal story from Torre Abbey starts beneath the spreading limbs of ancient lime trees lining what locals now call Old Lime Avenue. A ghostly figure is said to walk. He bears no head upon his shoulders. Instead, in his arms, he cradles it like a relic of some long-forgotten crime. The spectre is known in hushed tones as Widrington's Headless ghost. But behind that name lies a puzzle of misremembered history, folklore, and the deep human urge to find meaning in the unexplained. Like the many headless spirits of British folklore, the riders of Sleepy Hollow, the monks of old abbeys, the tragic nobles of haunted castles, Widrington's ghost carries the hallmarks of a soul unquestioned. His story, as it's told today, suggests he was once wrongfully accused of murder, perhaps executed in haste, only to reappear after death, proving his innocence too late. Some say he was betrayed by a trusted friend, others that his executioner repented upon learning the truth. His wandering presence on foggy nights is believed to signal unresolved injustice or, more darkly, a warning to those who repeat the sins of the past. But no historical records exist of a man named Widrington in connection with Torre Abbey, Torquay, or even the broader Devon region. The Widringtons, a noble family of Northumberland, have no documented ties to this southern coastal town. And so, scholars and storytellers alike are left with a mystery. Where did this ghost come from? The key to the legend may lie in the land itself. Torre Abbey, founded in 1196 and later seized during the dissolution of the monasteries in 1539, has long been a setting ripe for spectral tales. It is steeped in centuries of religious conflict, war, and social upheaval. During its time as a monastery and later as a private estate, violence, sorrow, and secrecy almost certainly left their mark, if not on the records, then on the imaginations of those who lived nearby. Old Lime Avenue is no mere invention. It refers to the historic tree-lined approach once known as Long Avenue, part of the Abbey estate. It was a grand, green thoroughfare, leading from the sea up toward the Abbey's grounds, now preserved in part as Lime Avenue. It remains shaded, quiet, and unsettling after dusk, a natural stage for a ghost story. The name Widrington, it turns out, may not be real at all, not in the way names are usually real. Linguists and folklorists suspect it may be a corruption of Goodrington, a coastal area just south of Torquay. Oral traditions, especially when repeated across generations without written records, are prone to slippage. A tale once told of the man from Widrington might easily become the ghost of Widrington. After decades of retellings, especially if that shift made the story sound older, more aristocratic, or more mysterious. In that light, Widrington's headless ghost becomes not just a local legend, but a perfect example of how ghost stories evolve. It may have begun with an unrelated haunting, like that of the headless monk said to haunt the abbey grounds, killed centuries ago during ecclesiastical strife. Over time, the monk may have gained a new name, a new backstory, and a new identity shaped by listeners' fears and fantasies. Is he real? Perhaps not in the sense of census or stone, but in the minds of those who walk the abbey paths at twilight, hear the wind rustle the limes, and feel something cold and invisible pass by. Widrington's headless ghost is as real as the centuries that birthed him. Our final story is tucked away behind the windswept gardens of Torre Abbey. There lies a narrow, tree-fringed path called Spanish Lane. It's here, according to generations of whispered tales and shadowy sightings, that the mournful figure of a woman in black appears, drifting silently through the mist, her face veiled, her sorrow palpable. Locals call her the Spanish Nun, though her tale is one more of love and tragedy than religious devotion. She is not a nun in any traditional sense, but rather a romantic exile. Her story anchored in the turbulent days of 1588, when the defeated Spanish Armada sent hundreds of prisoners into English custody. Nearly 400 were confined in what is now known as the Spanish Barn, part of Torre Abbey's grounds. Among them, according to legend, was a Spanish soldier whose lover refused to be separated from him. Disguising herself, some say in the garb of a sailor, others that she simply donned the mantilla, the traditional Spanish lace veil, she followed him across the sea and into captivity. In this version of the story, the woman's disguise was either discovered or maintained only briefly, but her devotion led her to share in his imprisonment. Whether she died from illness, heartbreak, or exposure in the barn's bleak conditions, the result was the same. Her spirit, unable to part from the one she loved, or the place of her final suffering, is said to walk the lane still, bound by grief. Though no official record confirms the woman's identity, the setting of the story is grounded in historical truth. The Spanish Barn did hold prisoners after the Armada's defeat, and at least a dozen are documented to have died while confined there. The name Spanish Lane preserves that link to history, and may have helped birth or sustain the ghost story through association. What began as oral storytelling in the 18th or 19th century likely gained shape during the Victorian era, when romantic ghost tales were fashionable and often layered with tragic love, noble suffering, and the supernatural. A woman veiled in black, mistaken for a nun, haunting a place called Spanish Lane. This story had all the elements of a Gothic legend, but the label nun is almost certainly a misinterpretation. The mantilla, a customary lace, head covering worn by Spanish women in mourning or formal occasions, would appear otherworldly to English eyes, especially if seen in low light or during a foggy evening walk. Over time, this misidentification may have given the woman a religious veneer she never possessed, transforming a lover into a martyr-like figure cloaked in piety and loss. Like many spectral legends, the Spanish nun's tale survives because of the emotional weight it carries. Her narrative isn't one of vengeance or horror, it is about devotion, sacrifice, and sorrow. In this way, she joins the company of other lady in black or weeping woman figures in European ghost lore. Not terrifying, but tragic. Her presence is often described as quiet, watchful, and heartbroken, not threatening. Modern ghost tours at Torre Abbey still invoke her name, and visitors walking Spanish Lane on quiet evenings occasionally report glimpses of a veiled figure in black, always just ahead, never turning to face them. But no verified contemporary sightings exist, and the legend now lives most powerfully in the stories passed down by guides, locals, and tourists drawn to the Abbey's haunting beauty. What makes the Spanish Nun's legend compelling is how place, history, and imagination intertwine. Spanish Lane, with its evocative name, naturally invites association with the Spanish prisoners held nearby. The Abbey's solemn architecture, coastal fog, and centuries of war-touched history all create fertile ground for ghost stories. A mourner in dark dress could easily be mistaken for something more spectral, especially in a place primed by suggestion and story. Her name, her sorrow, and her path endure not because we can verify her existence, but because her tale resonates with universal themes. We don't need to know exactly who she was to understand why she walks. The Spanish Nun is, at heart, a folk embodiment of tragic love. A woman who crossed boundaries of language, war, and convention to stay close to someone she could not save. Though likely rooted in a real historical setting, her story has been shaped by misinterpretation, amplified by Gothic imagination, and sustained by the emotional power of a good legend. She is not named in any census, but you can still meet her on Spanish Lane, if not in form, then in feeling. Her footsteps echo in the gravel, her veil stirs in the sea breeze, and her silence is the softest thread in Torre Abbey's rich and haunted tapestry. Lady Cary, Widrington. The Spanish Nun. None appear in census rolls or official documents, and yet each has carved a space in Torre Abbey's collective memory. Their stories are not just tales of the supernatural, they are reflections of the human spirit, our fears, regrets, and longing given shape in the mists of the Devon coast. In these phantoms, we find more than fiction. We find the soul of a place shaped by centuries of joy and tragedy. Whether they walked in life or were conjured in dream, the ghosts of Torre Abbey endure because they speak to something deeper than history. The ache of memory, the pull of mystery, and the quiet echo of footsteps. Tell us in the comments, which Torre Abbey ghost do you find most haunting? The elegant Lady Cary, the tragic Spanish Nun, or the silent Widrington? Like this story, tap the like button. It helps others find these forgotten, haunted tales. Subscribe for more ghost tales where history and mystery walk hand in hand.